for you. This session is designed for our first-time sellers. The idea is that you learn a little bit more about the selling process, get some hints and tips from Stefan and I. We've both been through this process. So not only is Stefan the head of product here at Flippa, and not only am I the CEO, but we both are customers of Flippa. We've bought and sold. And so with that, that's a very, very good place to start. So very big welcome to you, Stefan. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Well, thank you for joining. I think a great place to start is, would you mind just telling the audience about your own selling experience on Flippa? Because you've lived and breathed it and you've had a good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Stefan and I'm the head of product here at Flippa. And I joined Flippa last year, but prior to joining Flippa, I had sold a few websites of my own, including an e-commerce retailer of video games and accessories a few years ago. I had such a great experience selling on Flippa that last year I had the chance to join the team, and here I am today. But you know, I really understand the seller experience, and it's my job as head of product to really understand it. But I understand what it's like, and you know what it means and what it takes to successfully sell your site for a great price. So today I'm going to give you some tips to do exactly that.
Fantastic, Stefan. Well, thank you. Must have been a wonderful experience selling your video games company. Just remind us all, what year was that?
That was in 2014.
2014. Fantastic. All right. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go through some hints and tips on getting the most out of the selling experience. Stefan's then going to jump into the platform. He's going to show you some real live examples of sellers who are selling right now that are doing a particularly good job. And then, of course, we'll wrap up. The session will go for about 50 minutes, but don't worry, I should say. We are recording the session and we'll have that out to you all very shortly. Stefan, take it away. I think you're going to kick off by asking me a couple of questions.
Excellent. So I think the big question, you know, for potential sellers out there is, why should someone choose Flippa to begin with? Why choose Flippa over, say, a traditional business broker, for example?
Yeah, great question. And before I answer that, I'm going to address someone's question in the community right now. Someone had just asked, where do I get a Flippa t-shirt? So we're going to have a think about that, actually. If you send...
yeah.
Let's put it this way. If you have a successful selling experience on Flippa, we'll consider sending you a Flippa t-shirt. So why sell on Flippa? Yeah, it's a great question. Look, first and foremost, and probably the biggest element of this is that we have the most buyers. So we've got a very, very strong history. We are the original, we are the biggest, and most buyers look at Flippa first. And so with 5,500 new buyers each month, there's a lot of demand. People are on the lookout for digital assets. And if you have them, there's no better place. I mentioned at the top of this webinar that we had extraordinary user engagement. And you can see there 1.5 million users operating on the Flippa platform each month. And that translates to 10 million searches. And Stefan, you're going to talk about search a little bit later on and how that plays an impact here, but that's a big number. The other thing right now is that forget about COVID-19. Let's forget about that for the rest of the webinar because we've got bigger fish to fry right now. Buying a digital asset is hot right now. People are interested. So there's more demand than ever before and valuations are being pushed up. So if you're a seller, you're in a good position and Flippa makes that easy. We make it easy because it's a peer-to-peer platform. We make it easy because you can negotiate, and we make it easy because you can safely transact using our integrated payment mechanisms. The second one is bang for buck, or the third one, I should say, bang for buck. So our listing fees are low. Yes, we do have listing fees, but our listing fees are low, and our success fees are best in market. Now, of course, you can go and list on some marketplaces which are free, but that's an entirely different proposition. They don't have the buyer base. You're not going to get the tools and the technology that you can access on Flippa. Our success fees are the best in market. And ultimately, there are three pretty good reasons why I think people should sell on Flippa.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I think probably one of the biggest areas of confusion when it comes to selling a digital asset is around the value of the digital assets. Because, you know, this is a relatively new asset class in the world, and there's not as much historical performance data. So sellers are often confused. They're often misled into thinking that their site is worth less than it is. Now, this runs the gamut, but Blake, from a numbers standpoint, can you tell everyone what's the average multiple range for different types of digital assets?
Yep. The first thing I'll add here is that throughout this webinar, we will mostly focus on website assets and online businesses, content, e-commerce, and SaaS as examples. Now, that's not to say for all of those people listening in that you can't sell domains, apps, code bases, YouTube channels, anything you want that is a digital asset on Flippa. But for the purposes of the dialogue, just to make it simple for us to focus our content, we are focusing on online businesses and websites for the moment. And so the first thing I want to say is buyers look for opportunity, but they pay for performance. And that is a really, really critical point. We hear from lots of sellers, but my asset is worth more because of the great opportunity. That may be the case. Buyers will be interested in that. Buyers absolutely do look for opportunity, but they pay for performance. And so let's talk about that a little bit. In the content context, so you've got a blog, you've got an online magazine, you've got a review site where it's content driven. Typically that will be backed by either affiliate revenue or advertising revenue. Advertising could be AdSense, it could be sponsorships, it could be any other source of advertising. The average there is 1.95 times SDE, seller discretionary earnings. So let's stop and pause for a moment. What is seller discretionary earnings? Seller discretionary earnings is your net profit adjusted for non-carry forward costs. So as an example, one-time expenses are removed. Let's say, for argument's sake, you're an e-commerce owner or e-commerce business owner. Let's say that you paid a developer and a designer on a one-time basis to get you set up on eBay, on Amazon, on Walmart. Let's say that that is a one-time cost. It's non-carry forward. The buyer will not have to wear that cost ongoing. That's a non-carry forward cost. You remove it, and therefore your net profit line is adjusted, and that is called SDE. In addition, non-related business expenses, meals, entertainment, etc. And then finally, it's adjusted for your own salary. So one owner's salary can be removed for the purposes of presenting the performance of the business. So that's what we mean by SDE. So content, the average is 1.95 times SDE. Now, of course, there are anomalies. And you and I will talk a little bit about some great examples in a minute, Stefan. But yes, you do get some examples of where something is performing very, very well from a traffic standpoint, but maybe it hasn't been fully optimized for revenue just yet. And so buyers will be willing to pay a lot more for that. And so that's why you might get a 6 times SDE on occasion. But that is an edge case. It is an anomaly. E-commerce, similar, 1.85 times SDE. And then, of course, SaaS. SaaS is obviously exciting to a lot of buyers because of the recurring nature of the revenue stream. But note, what buyers will be assessing is the churn rate if you're running a SaaS business. Now, of course, Flippa accepts all of these assets. For SaaS, you've got an average of 2.7 times SDE. Now, there's a couple of notes at the bottom there as it relates to starter sites and starter apps. Of course, established apps also. Now, we will be sending this presentation out. People will all have access to that, so you can consume that content.
Excellent. You know, one of the things I really find fascinating about this space is how oftentimes digital assets are worth more than people realize. I know for myself, I was able to get a lot more from my e-commerce business than I ever thought possible. And it really took me by surprise. And even just a few weeks ago, I was having coffee with a friend here in Melbourne, back when we were allowed to go to coffee shops. And, you know, he had a SaaS business making about $100,000 a year in Australian dollars. And, you know, I said, have you ever considered, you know, selling it on Flippa? And he said, well, yeah, but I'd only get about 1x for that, right? And I said, no, not at all. you're looking at about 2.5x, right? And so, it's just interesting. People don't realize how much that their businesses are worth. And it's also interesting that valuations are actually, they're starting to go up, right? Over the past few years, we've seen business valuations go up as more people realize the inherent value of digital assets. So bottom line is the time to sell is now.